Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of An Engineer's Guide to HellLetLoose. In this one, we are on the Saint-Mere-Eglise map, and we're going to be taking a look at the Rue de Gamobosville strong point from the German perspective. And here is the tactical map for SME. The red square I've drawn here with the four capable sectors I'll usually refer to as the soft cap, but it also contains the strong point. Once you're in the soft cap, your cap weight is added to control of the strong point, and if you're in the strong point or the hard cap, your cap weight is multiplied. All right, while we have the tactical map up, we'll just take a quick look at the general avenues of attack from checkpoint or from the Allied side into Rue. Again, it's generally there's a south side push. We'll take a look at what that means in detail when we turn back in the game here in a moment. And the other is a north side push, which can also then be extended into a backside push and causes a number of challenges. If the push is from checkpoint, Axis attacks are likely to go back this way and maybe even this way. I would be less concerned in this scenario about the south side push, and I'd be more worried about the flank to the north and then to the back side. And so if you just take a very quick look at what the center cap is, and you're assuming worst case scenario, and you see that checkpoint is rolled, then maybe prepare a north side defense. Take a look at that in game here momentarily. If it's Saint-Mere-Eglise, Saint-Mere-Eglise can be attacked from a number of positions from the Axis side. The first might be this attack emanating from the south. The other would be straight on in. You can attack it from the north, and you can attack it from the back side. In this scenario, this north side, well, it's the south side push into Saint-Mere-Eglise. It's likely to negate a lot more of the top side pressure, and so as the engineer, you got to be more worried about the south side attack. If it's hospice, it's pretty bad for you as the defenders, because the ways in the hospice, there are a number of them. You push right up from the center. You can push in from the backside. There is a way to push in from the top, and you can push in from the backside. Great. The problem is it doesn't really help you as the defense. It doesn't seriously negate either the northern or the southern attack onto Rue, and you need to keep that in mind before you go ahead and start constructing for the defensive Rue. So here we are in game, and when we are zoomed out, as I've said in a number of other videos, a lot of the attack routes or the general attack routes just clearly manifest themselves. They're along the lines of hedges or trees into and out of a point. Now we are looking at Rue from, so we are here, right? Rue is here. So we're looking at this from the German lines, and we're looking out towards Allied lines, which are out there. This area off to our right is going to be the south side. It's one of the two avenues, general avenues of attack in Rue, and I'll show you a little bit more specifically about what those mean. So we're going back towards checkpoint, and from the Allied side, so if we're up near checkpoint and assuming that the Allies have cleared and captured checkpoint, they have that. There is this kind of awkward, well, it's not awkward, but it's a backside building, and from there are kind of two trench routes into the south side of Rue. I'm going from memory here, but it seems like a lot of times this southernmost trench, kind of checkered, hedge covered, seems to be the most profitable way in practice into Rue. Kind of get up to this point, and then you jump across the stone wall, and you're smoking and fragging your way in. The other, I think, is more well known, and it's this very low hedge that we're over. That's looking back towards checkpoint, and that's looking back towards Rue. But it's this kind of trench with hedges on the side, and you move down the trench here, and you're going to come to an opening right about here, and then you continue all the way into, and you are into the hard cap into Rue. Those are the two main trench hedge avenues into Rue from the south side. The other, and I'll include it in the south side push, is this wheat field, but again, take a look at the position we're actually looking at. It's not really part of what you would think of a south side push, but it is this wheat field. And this would be the first avenue of defense I would start to think about. I'll try to be honest up here, or up front here. For a comprehensive defense of Rue, you really ought to have two knowledgeable engineers, and a third would not be bad. But we're going through the worst case scenarios, which is that you're the only one that kind of knows what's going on, and you're going to do triage and do the best you can with what you have. So I talked about a north side push, which would emanate from this road that is up here, and really it begins to turn when that attack comes down this road and the accompanying set of hedges and a wheat field. Yes, through the set of buildings, this is us looking back to Rue. But when they come out of Saint-Mere-Eglise, if they get this intersection, they can then turn down this road. They have this wheat field, and they can get into Rue that way. It's a concern, and if they decide to, rather than going all the way into Rue, come down this backside, there are wheat fields aplenty on the backside of Rue. So this is one of the weaknesses of defending Rue, and it's actually kind of common in the other two German points in this sector. There's a lot of wheat field on the backside that can make it a challenging engineering solution to the problems of defense. All right, I am going to turn to kind of the engineering triage, doing the best you can all over the place. But before I do that, I do want to talk briefly about spawns. This barn down here, right, that's the hard cap in front of us. The hard cap, it is rolled on this map, but it's not, you can't see it because I haven't captured Saint-Mere. But the hard cap is pretty much these buildings, and that's what constitutes Rue. This shed over here is not part of that, but pretty much everyone, their brother, their brother's dog, their brother's dog, and so on, they're going to put a garrison inside of that building. That's not the worst thing to ever happen. If there is a friendly defensive garrison, that's on the backside. I mean, in and of itself, it has pretty well covered pathways into the hard cap, and it has decent coverage into some of the south side defense that you might need depending on what your zone of responsibility is. And if you have a garrison there, you can also have friendly defensive garrisons, which work really well as soft recons. So we are out there. If we're looking back at the garrison that should be now straight in front of us, or the building that's straight in front of us, let's see. Yeah, that's it. It's 316 meters away. So we can get a friendly garrison much closer, perhaps on this backside, which is one of the areas I would be concerned about losing. And if you control that and have that there, you can also have a friendly garrison either up in this wheat field closer to the hard cap or closer to that building over there. So you can have at least 3 well-placed garrisons in addition to OPs that will give you some sense as to where enemies are coming from, and they're fairly well concealed. All right, if you are the engineer and you kind of got to deal with the worst case scenario attack, and that is that you have to defend for everything, I'll give you the kind of budget version of how I would go about defending the entirety of Rue and the builds. Because there are so many attack avenues into Rue, there is a lot of constructing that could be done, and really it would be optimally built by multiple engineers. But assuming that you're the only engineer tasked with this, and you might be able to make maybe 3 supply runs, we'll take a look at what might be the best use of your time. I think taking the south side attack, taking that away from the Allies is probably your best bet. It's based on anecdotal experience and also a look at the map. If the Allies are pushing this south side, the only counterattack you can launch is from the hard cap itself, because the boundary is going to limit your ability to push them from this side. If they have to push in along this road to get up to that junction I showed you earlier, you should have counterattack angles all through this backside. And so I would say build to stop the south side push first, it seems like the easiest and the quickest, and so if you take that away, you should hold the root the longest. So after you get your nodes up, if you had to get nodes up, you have 150 or 300 supply. If you didn't have to get nodes, I'd say drop them around here. You're going to need 150 for a level 3 barricade that's at about a 30-degree angle from that hedge. You want it back so that you are not easily sniped from that angle up there. And at that angle, you still have a look into your primary concern. It's not your concern. I would say that's an MG or rifleman's concern. It's the southernmost trench that has this hedge. It's broken, but it is this broken hedge that screens the Allied advance to the nearly to the doorstep of Rue. If you can get 300 supplies down, you could really use 50 more supplies. What you need is 50 supplies for a vehicle repair station, and it's for friendly armor to either come up here or to come down there. That's something you should build. If possible, at some point after that, if you can get a 50 supply drop around here, and the AT player has the capability to build an AT gun, again, either here at the very bottom of the map or up here, kind of at a convex with the barricade you're going to build, that gives them the ability to deal with enemy armor that's going to want to push through this field. With the remaining 150 or so supply that should be here, and you really do need the full 150 for the full benefit, I would try to get another level 3 barricade back here. It's going to look into the next set of trenches. Really, it's a hedge, or it's two sets of hedges with a trench in the middle. It's not going to be able to do a whole lot. You're going to be able to shoot the folks who don't know to get in the trench, but it also makes it a little bit easier to move from that. That's the backside barn spawn to get into those trenches and then get into the hard cap. And so it connects spawns to the hard cap, which is always a decent tactic. I think the most cost-effective way, again, if you're the only engineer, to deal with this trench goes all the way back to pretty much checkpoint, and then it takes someone who's in it all the way to roof. Try to get an empty transport truck, drive it here, turn it off. If you can't do that, barbed wire here or a barricade here. And if you can't do either of those, 4 AP mines, if possible, as far forward as possible. And hopefully there's a third member of your squad. I think this is a good position for someone with an SMG, like an MP40 as the axis, to kind of sit here. That's the hard cap. And check and spray. And they can also check and spray down the road. I think that's how you deal with those two southernmost pushes. I never find that this is a particularly fruitful attack avenue because there is no way in through those hedges. You have to come back here, and you should already be watching that. I find that building it off, it's too easily flanked and shot into. Hopefully, you have all your barbed wire, or at least 3 strands. I would say use 2 or 3 of those strands to cut off this wheat field. It's not really part of the south side. Look where we are, look at where we're looking. But 1 in the center, if you're going to build 3, 1 on the right, 1 on the left, and anti-personnel mines, or 2, if you were able to save them and not have to use them earlier. If you can only use 2 strands of barbed wire, 1 here, 1 here, AP mines in the middle, and you can leave the sides open. What that does from the Allied perspective is it should cut off any easy access to the road to this straight-on push in. Should make this pretty difficult. And if you're able to build that barbed wire over to here, it leaves just a tiny gap for them to run up from this angle, and then they have to either push in on the road or push around here. With whatever is left that you can construct, barbed wire, barricades, bunkers, I would recommend building it in this. So we are looking towards Allied lines. That's Rue. I would recommend building with whatever remains something maybe from this gap up here down to maybe that gap down there, and cutting off any easy ingress paths. Again, that was the worst case scenario. If there are other engineers there's quite a bit more you could do, including a level 3 bunker here on this road that would give you looks back towards, well, you can see it's Saint-Mere and some of that push there. You could also get a level 3 bunker here that would deal with some of the gaps that your barbed wire and that wheat field weren't able to cover. You could also build up a little bit more forcefully the backside defenses. You could do more with barbed wire and anti-personnel mines to push people out of these hedges. This backside wheat field, this one right here, really can wrap around and potentially cut off some backside spawns, and so more barbed wire and barricades out here. You're not going to have good looks over the barricades, but that is what it is. A budget version of this is also asking for a recon squad lead to spawn in defensively and spam flares over those wheat fields, and or get a light tank as the Germans. The Lux is great for this. The recon tank would do, and have them just run riot through these backside wheat fields. This is not 360 degrees of protection. It is still possible, if the Allies have the center cap, for them to get garrisons up at these backside and attack any sort of barn spawn. Be cognizant of it, know that it's there, and do what you can with the supplies and the time that you have.